Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, China's national treasures, the Gilded Dragons exhibition. Musicians from 60 countries gather to make music of a different kind. A hostel for the homeless transformed by aspiring artists. The tourist attraction that's going places, the world's most famous steam locomotive, and memorabilia for Hollywood and rock fans up for grabs. But first up, Eton College, the 15th century school responsible for nurturing the careers of many eminent statesmen, also houses a hidden treasure trove, and it's finally been revealed to the public. A centenary exhibition of probably the finest 19th century private collection of Egyptian antiquities in the world has until recently been unheard of outside the college. In an act reflecting his deep affection for his former school, Major William Joseph Myers, a soldier in the King's Royal Rifle Corps, on his death in 1899, bequeathed his collection of Egyptian antiquities to Eton. Although he saw active service in South Africa and India, it was his time in Egypt which he found most intoxicating. Captivated by the splendours of the ancient civilization, Major Myers became well known to leading archaeologists and collectors of his day. Eton College also owns 31 of the 36 diaries penned by the Major, which recorded life and times in Egypt as the century closed. The collection is made up of over 2,000 objects, the finest 200 of which have been chosen for the exhibition. Myers' acquisitions reveal much about the essence of Egyptian art, perfection and colour. A key educational objective of this exhibition is to offer all school-aged children the opportunity to gain a greater historical and aesthetic insight into the life of the ancient Egyptians. The exhibit is one of a series of educational initiatives linking Eton to the wider community. One of China's most recently uncovered treasures, a stone warrior from the Tang dynasty. This special exhibition, Gilded Dragons, shares the spotlight with the 50th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. The exhibition includes national treasures and artefacts uncovered by archaeologists since the end of China's Cultural Revolution. The main theme of the exhibition, the Tang dynasty, is a period from 618 to 906. This dragon was discovered in the foundations of a building where it was laid to give the occupants good luck. Seen as an auspicious as well as magnificent creature, the dragon was supposed to bring rain and was therefore a symbol of abundance and fertility. Most of the gold, silver and gilded objects, including this incense burner and hair decorations, were discovered buried in tombs. The ancient Chinese lavished immense wealth on their tombs in preparation for the afterlife and were buried with their most valued possessions. All the exhibits are from Shaanxi province, probably the richest depository of archaeological remains in China and one of the cradles of Chinese civilizations. During this time, trading silk for thoroughbred horses was a major element of commerce for the peoples of Central Asia. The numerous portrayals of equestrian figures include both men and women. Buddhism consolidated in China during the era of turmoil between the two great dynasties of Han and Tang, brought with it the creation of statues for religious ceremonies and secular use. These are among the most precious Buddhist treasures belonging to China. A fanfare of brass instruments echoes from the tower of Dartington Hall. For 5 weeks every summer for over 50 years, this picturesque medieval stately home, set in acres of grounds in Devon in the west of England, has become home to musicians from 60 countries who meet to learn, to teach and make music of all kinds.
Try that. It's difficult to do, but once you...
17-year-old Ross Brown is studying the trumpet full-time and already plays in semi-professional orchestras. He's at Dartington for coaching from teacher Michael Laird. But being at the summer school offers him more than just top-class tuition. It's an opportunity to get out of the practice room and make contact with professionals.
I could be my own rock star, I'd journey wide and travel far and sing to millions if I pleased.
Amateurs and professionals combine in putting on Mozart's opera The Magic Flute, transported to a modern New York, complete with rock stars, journalists and Papageno as a Glaswegian roadie. The production was originally staged with the idea of drawing children into understanding opera. Richard Williams' new project is to revive at Dartington a 17th century opera in praise of King Louis XIV, the Sun King. It formed part of Dartington's celebration of the solar eclipse. He is in no doubt that with humour and imagination, classical music can be appreciated by all ages. Betty Freeman has no time for old-fashioned stereotypical attitudes. A keen patron and photographer of the avant-garde, for her, contemporary music should be the focus for today's musicians, not reinterpreting what she calls the 3 Bs of the past: Bach, Beethoven and Brahms. Today, she says, it should be Birtwistle, Berlioz and Berio. This exhibition shows some of the many now famous contemporary composers and performers who've taught and studied at Dartington. For some, it marked the beginning of a career. For others, a chance to get out of a rut and form new musical partnerships. Anyone can join the famous Dartington Choir. In a week, the challenge for the conductor is to coach them into performing to the highest standards. Here they're rehearsing a contemporary piece which calls for some definitely unclassical singing styles. It's called Meteor Farm. Joining the choir in the work will be a gamelan orchestra from Bali. These Western-trained musicians are trying their hand at this very different musical tradition. Each gets to play the chimes, gongs and other instruments in turn. Very different from a traditional Western orchestra where each performer focuses on their own part. The two traditions will blend together. A contrasting element to the gamelan in the Meteor Farm production is the jazz orchestra, here put through its paces by a leading figure on the modern jazz scene, Keith Tippett. Music making requires cooperation and trust. This drama class is experimenting with ways of crossing an open space. There's no right or wrong, no one sitting in judgment. One of the most important issues of Dartington is that it's a place to come and make mistakes, a liberating experience for serious musicians. For the first time at Dartington, students can take a break from their harpsichord masterclasses or jazz big band and get their heads round some South Indian rhythms. The musical terms, the scale, ornamentation, and of course the language is different. But this inevitably brief glimpse into an unfamiliar tradition can have benefits for any musician. It will introduce them to new scale and rhythmic structures, so their own Western musical skills are greatly enriched by this experience. There's nowhere quite like this summer school. Cultural and stylistic barriers seem to count for nothing. Here the old cliche about music being the international language actually rings true. It's been described as a tale of transformation. 4 years ago, this hostel was run by anxious staff, intimidated by their clients. The furniture was bolted to the floor, the walls covered in graffiti. Today it's a hive of creativity. Residents work with artists to produce murals and paintings. The result has been a complete overhaul of the Aldgate hostel and a rebirth for many of the residents involved. The hostel has shaken off its seedy reputation and created a new atmosphere, all at a relatively low financial cost.
All from Brick Lane, bits and bobs that we found in Brick Lane.
However, the artworks are not restricted to these colourful walls in the hostel. Residents and local school children have also been working in the area surrounding the shelter. The project has been helped by contributions from local councils and banks. The hostel has also worked on a practical level, training residents and telling them about their employment options.
Again, that's something we're trying as much as possible.
The hostel is close to the Wilton Theatre, the world's oldest musical hall. A performance group called Broomhill has restored the site and invited hostel residents to take part in a play about their experiences. The hostel has already produced a budding Picasso who's been offered a commission from a major art gallery. Another former resident is hoping to become a filmmaker and is already working in television. The Millennium Dome may dominate the skyline, but just down the road is yet another building pointing to the future. The architects are calling it the most environmentally friendly store in Britain. Inside, natural light floods through the roof windows, a change from the clinical white neon atmosphere of most supermarkets. The fridges run on propane gas, which doesn't produce chemicals harmful to the Earth's protective layer of ozone. Cool air is drawn into the store at ground level. As it warms up, it rises and flows out through grills in the roof. Both the ventilation and heating systems have been designed to cut back sharply on energy consumption. This borehole water, rather than the local water supply, is also used to flush the toilets. And recycled plastic bottles are the source for these decoratively patterned walls. Outside, the reed bed acts like a filter for rainwater from the yard, which is then recycled to irrigate the landscaped area around the store. All in all, the designers say the store will use only half the energy of a conventional store. And when you've finished shopping, you can push your trolley over this ultra hard-wearing matting made of recycled vehicle tyres and load up the not so environmentally friendly car. store's owners make a valiant effort to persuade people to use alternative and greener means of transport to get here. But the day when we all drive electric cars or cycle to the superstore is clearly still some way off. They were a commonplace sight in the past, and there was nothing quite like them. The steam trains which huffed and puffed along the main lines, fulfilling many a schoolboy dream. Today, the dream from the past becomes a reality again. The Flying Scotsman back on the main line she first graced more than 70 years ago. The world's most famous steam locomotive stands at London's King's Cross. The restoration took 3 years and cost her owner a cool $1.6 million. The massive job of preservation started 3 years ago, and since then every part of the train has been refurbished and replaced. The pristine carriages await. The train is full with 250 passengers, paying $560 a head for the trip to York. For the passengers, the trip on the East Coast Main Line is a very special experience. It's certainly a spectacular sight as preparations are underway to build up a head of steam.
Okay.
Then, with a final whistle and a skirl of bagpipes, the Flying Scotsman pulls out of King's Cross, history repeating itself. This sale at Bonham's auction house is a dream come true for film fanatics wanting to get closer to legendary Hollywood heroes. The last 2 decades have seen a huge increase in the popularity of film and celebrity memorabilia, with posters like these fetching $300 to $400. This coat, worn by Clark Gable in the epic Gone with the Wind, fetched $2,400. This black monkey fur jacket once belonged to Marilyn Monroe. Along with these photos, it went for $2,240. But these latex prosthetics from the classic 1967 film Planet of the Apes remained unsold, with a reserve price of $320. The cult TV series Doctor Who spawned a host of collector's items, including this Cyberman head worth $800 to one fan. However, this 29-foot scarf worn by actor Tom Baker's Doctor Who remained unsold. But the star of the collection was this extremely rare, full-sized, fully operational Dalek, which fetched $9,280. Even photos and autographs from the original Star Wars fetched high prices, a good sign for collectors of today's Star Wars memorabilia, however trivial. So if today's sale is anything to go by, film buffs should start collecting movie trivia now for a considerable financial return in a few decades' time. Also under the hammer, one of the most impressive collections of rock and pop memorabilia from the 1950s to the present day. Costumes worn by the artist formerly known as Prince fetched around $1,600 each, while his custom-made Cloud Electric guitar, designed for the film Purple Rain, fetched over $4,000. Elvis Presley, the King, was back in the form of this draft letter to his fans, written during his military service in Germany. The words, penned by his own hand, "I'll be counting the days when I can start entertaining again," fetched $6,440. Topping the King's own handwriting was the RCA-type centre stage microphone used in one of his early radio performances. This Roy Tan unopened blunt cigar, taken from the Lisa Marie aeroplane on Elvis's last tour, didn't reach its reserve price, $800. Top of the tree in rock memorabilia is anything by the Beatles. These lampshades, album covers and bowls sold for hundreds of dollars each. A program of the Fab Four fetched over $5,000. But of all the guitars for sale, the star of the show was the Leo Fender Rosewood Telecaster guitar. Made for George Harrison, it's most remembered for the Beatles' last public performance on top of the Apple Building in January 1969. The Beatles, Elvis, Jimi Hendrix and the Rolling Stones are the top four in the collector's hierarchy, as this sale showed. Who knows if later memorabilia, like these diamond print platform boots worn by Baby Spice in Spice World the movie, will one day knock them off their perch. And finally to the animal world. This rare Egyptian tortoise is one of 3 to be born at the Bristol Zoo. The minute animals, the smallest land tortoises in the Northern Hemisphere, are now an endangered species due to an over-collection and illegal smuggling for the pet trade. The triplets are the new darlings of the zoo and the subject of constant monitoring. As befits their ancestral origin, the Bristol trio are expected to be named Antony, Cleopatra and Sphinx. It's the first time the tortoises have been bred in captivity. They're expected to grow to 15 centimetres and weigh up to 300 grams. The males in this case are smaller and lighter than the females. The hatchlings' parents were confiscated after being imported illegally 3 years ago. At the opposite end of the scale is this 200-kilo tortoise from the Seychelles. While it may not fit into the palm of your hand, it's still a popular attraction. In addition to its nursery, the zoo has also opened a state-of-the-art seal and penguin coast. The animals can be seen from above the water via an elevated boardwalk. Under the waterline, a series of transparent tunnels enables a viewer to experience the life of the seal as it glides through its natural habitat. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at people, places, the arts and curiosities.